Thomas Matthew Crooks. He shot President Trump. He was killed. And we found out who he was. We got his name. We got very limited information. They only give you the information that they want you to have. They only give you the narrative that they want you to have. Well, now we have quite a bit of information. So tell me why. You guys are the actual FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and you have an entire investigation that was done by someone other than you. It's been a real whirlwind. Tucker Carlson released a documentary on Thomas Crooks. And you guys, actually, so much time has passed. You may have forgotten who is Thomas Crooks. Well, you might recall it's been 489 days since that man with that name took a shot on President Trump, shot him in the head, tried to assassinate him in what will go down as one of the most iconic moments in American history. And 489 days, we still don't have many answers. We know who was behind it. He was 20 years old, and he was killed by Secret Service after getting off the shots, Thomas Matthew Crooks. But then after that, just kind of went away. He shot President Trump. He was killed. And we found out who he was. We got his name. We got very limited information. Then we heard something about, ties to foreign accounts overseas. And then, poof, it was gone. Couldn't find anything else about him. Now, Kash Patel has repeatedly promised that we would get full transparency about this.
The Butler guy that we don't know a lot about. Will we know a lot more about him? Is there more to know?
I don't know that there's more to know, but you're going to know everything we know. And that's the other thing we did. We take assassination attempts, and especially of the President of the United States, extremely seriously. Oh. And we don't feel that the American people have been given the information they need on that.
Hey, I agree. I agree with you, Kash. It's just that, I don't know, the FBI tracked down every single person who happened to be in the area of D.C. on January 6th, 2021. So, I feel pretty confident that the FBI would be able to figure this out, would be able to track down any new information and then release it to us, as you just explained, we should see because we need transparency. Well, it turns out, you guys are going to be shocked to hear this. There's a whole lot of information out there that we haven't been told. And that is why, of course, Tucker released this documentary today. There happened to be, after someone, gets accused of mass shootings or assassination attempts or anything like that, they just quietly disappear from the internet. It is something that I have been talking about for a very long time that is so strange, such a new phenomenon that we don't get told these people's information, it seems, until federal law enforcement has done a complete, just wiped them clean from the internet. So we can't actually go and do the digging. Thomas Matthew Crooks this is not a new thing with him. It is a recently new phenomenon since social media became big. But it wasn't like that before. And now all of a sudden you can't go see for yourself. They only give you the information that they want you to have. They only give you the narrative that they want you to have. Well, now we have quite a bit of information. And here is a short clip of Tucker's new documentary.
These are videos the FBI has worked hard to make sure you haven't seen. They're from the Google Drive account of Thomas Crooks, the man who on July 13th, 2024, showed up at the Butler County, Pennsylvania fairgrounds and tried to assassinate the frontrunner, Donald Trump.
And look what happened to our country.
The purpose of this report is to reveal details of Crooks' social media accounts and to confront a series of key questions. Why is the FBI keeping Crooks' views a secret? Why are they ignoring congressional subpoenas to divulge information? Why are they pretending that there's nothing to see here? And more than anything, what are they hiding? Here's what we do know. The digital comments we obtained were posted between 2019 and 2020, when Thomas Crooks was between 15 and 17 years old. They show two things. First, that Thomas Crooks was not some secretive lone wolf who never warned anyone that he was planning violence, just the opposite. Years before he showed up in Butler, Crooks was leaving a detailed digital trail of violent threats, including calls for assassinations and political violence. Second, they show a man who started out as a radical Trump supporter, whose views on the president changed completely during COVID. The FBI lied about that fact and pretended that Crooks was a right-winger. If Crooks wasn't known to anyone in authority before the shooting, how was he able to post hundreds of violent extremist comments under his real name between 2019 and 2020 without being detected by law enforcement or intel agencies at a time we know they were monitoring social media? Were those comments, including specific assassination threats against specific public officials, ever reported to YouTube? Other users complained about them. Did YouTube know? Why is the FBI telling us that they'll release this information, quote, after the trial, when there is no trial? Why did an FBI agent from the Technical Hazards Response Unit hose down the crime scene the day after the attack? That seems very strange. What happened on the roof of the American Glass Research Building for the 10 seconds after Crooks' last shot until he was killed by the Secret Service? Does the FBI have surveillance footage of Thomas Crooks shooting that day?
Now, it goes without saying, this is like a 35-minute video. It is well worth your time to go watch in full. I'm going to give you the high points here, and when you have time, you need to go watch this because there are serious questions. I remember right after this happened, I spoke to FBI sources, and they told me that this kid fit the mold exactly of someone who would be primed by the FBI, someone who would be, he went to a gun range where there were law enforcement officials who also happened to go to that gun range. And did they get a hold of him? And did they brainwash him? And they said this kid fit the mold exactly for that. Okay. Now, Tucker was given access to a new report that is out. And we were also given access to some of the findings from this report as well from the source. This is called In Plain Sight: Attempted Assassin Thomas Matthew Crooks, His Digital Footprint and What We Should Have Known. So what the report concludes is that Thomas Crooks was not a mystery or a lone unpredictable actor. There were years worth of obvious escalating digital warnings, including blatant threats. Law enforcement and YouTube did nothing. Nothing. I mean, if they did, let us know. But what I see is that he escalated and he escalated and he escalated. And then all of a sudden, he was able to get on a hot, slopey roof and shoot our president, then political candidate, in the ear. That's what I saw. So I want to go through some of these because the timeline here is important, okay? Thomas Crooks, you will hear from the FBI. You have heard from the FBI in sworn testimony that Thomas Crooks, we've just recently found out that Thomas Crooks was a far right-wing nut job. That's what they always say. He was far right-wing. He was a big-time Trumper. This is what the FBI has told us prior. No new developments, no new updates, just that Thomas Crooks was a crazy Republican, crazy Trumper. And so I want to show you what I'm grappling with now that I've seen, now that I've watched this, now that I've seen this report that I have right here. I've gone through it in its entirety, okay? And there is a very clear shift, as Tucker mentions, during COVID. I'm going to give you a couple examples of Thomas Crooks before COVID, when everyone was shut down and there were a lot of, conversations happening online and different servers and different chats and different social media platforms. Okay? So before COVID and then during COVID. Before and after is very stark. Let's start with this first one here. He's responding to a YouTube comment, and he mentions that is very, very anti-immigrant. He says, Ilhan Omar and others are invaders and should honestly be killed and their dead bodies sent back. There's another one here that says, murder the Democrats. This is not a, what you would call a left-wing guy, right? Well, hold on. All of a sudden, there's a shift. And oh, by the way, let me give you a couple other ones here. If you're saying Trump is a bad president, this is before. If you're saying Trump is a bad president, you aren't a patriot, as Trump is the literal definition of patriotism. Big Trump guy before COVID. This is going to be blatantly racist, but I hope Trump has these people murdered. I hope a quick, painful death to all the deplorable immigrants and anti-Trump congresswomen who don't deserve anything this country has given them. So that is why the FBI felt emboldened to go sit in front of Congress, members of Congress, and explain to them that this guy was a crazy Trumper. I mean, it makes sense, right? That's why this crazy Trumper who just said Trump is the literal definition of patriotism would go sit on a hot, slopey roof and try to shoot him in the head. Doesn't make sense, does it? Well, that's because what the FBI failed to mention was the moment that started changing. And then, sometime in 2020, he had a completely different mindset. He started saying things like the deep state is simply made up of anybody who disagrees with the right wing. Conversation over. You really believe that shit? How can you people call others sheep, but you are so brainwashed? There are some typos in here. You're going to be shocked. This kid wasn't very bright. You are so brainwashed to realize how dumb you are. If someone told you Chinese people descended from aliens and then put the fake archaeologist who found out on air as evidence, you'd believe it. But somehow you guys have woken up. I mean, literally, you guys sound like a cult at times. So he's calling Trump supporters a cult. Then he mentions in another post about Trump, he says the only reason we may know about this is because of Trump's stupidity. He mentions, I can see people getting away with what Trump has done, billionaires, longtime senators, governors. And then he concludes, he's not really good at hiding things, and I'm willing to bet this sort of conduct happens quite a bit and nobody finds out. So this is a guy who had a shift, a very clear shift in 2020. All of a sudden, he hates Trump. And by the way, his violent rhetoric is getting escalated and escalated and escalated. And it does end with a curious message. This is, I believe, his last one, to a guy by the name of Willie Tepps. And he's talking about getting away with fighting the government, with killing, political leaders. And he goes through this whole big thing. He's being egged on by this Willie Tepps guy, allegedly. And interestingly enough, when you go watch this video, you will learn that there's one key hit on the name Willie Tepps when you do a search. And it's foreign related. And it's like this Nordic Antifa terrorist type group. Curiously enough. But other than that, we have no idea who it was that was curiously encouraging Tom Crooks to start really thinking seriously about how he would commit political violence. Now, let me give you some of his searches online. Trump church shooting video. 2019. Gun versus protesters, 2019 as well. Orlando shooting reaction, 2019. Firing an AR-15 as fast as possible, 2020. Fertilizer bomb, 2020. How do you use a tourniquet? April of 2020. How to make napalm, April of 2020. Molotov cocktail. How to make Molotov cocktail. Mixing gasoline with styrofoam. Mass shooting Canada. Oklahoma bombing. Sniper in Dallas shooting. I mean, this is a guy who is not well. And I'm just wondering, with so many people on the FBI radar. And the fact that the FBI radar can be so vast at times, I mean, they can track down anyone for anything, unless you're the pipe bomber. And unless you try to assassinate the president, then running for office. And all of a sudden, we can't find anything. We have no idea. I'm telling you guys, this man was on their radar. They won't tell you that. This is my opinion, FBI. Okay? He was on their radar and something happened and someone got to him. And now all of a sudden, he's been programmed to want to kill Trump. When you watch this, there's no other conclusion to walk away from it. So this report, okay, right here, it has a list of questions, and I'm going to end with these questions because it's very important that we get answers to these questions. How did Thomas Matthew Crooks post hundreds of violent extremist comments under his real name between 2019 and 2020 without detection by law enforcement or intelligence agencies? There was no pseudonym. He was using his real name. So if we are to believe that the government had nothing to do with this, then we need answers to these questions. Seems rather odd, doesn't it? He would not be on their radar at all after making all of these comments? After people saying, hey, I hope YouTube, you need a suspension from YouTube. You're kind of crazy. All these comments, all these Google searches, nothing? Interesting. Were any of his comments, which included open calls for terrorism and assassination, ever reported to YouTube or escalated for moderation review? If so, what happened? I know for a fact YouTube is all over their stuff because I've been demonetized for 2 years of my life, 2+ years of my life, for saying something far more benign than calling for assassination. I misgendered someone and I almost lost my entire YouTube account. Okay, so we know YouTube is on this. Was Crooks ever flagged to the FBI, DHS, or NSA as a potential threat prior to the July 13th, 2024 attack? If not, why not? Was Crooks ever on federal radar? And if so, was that information deliberately withheld from public congressional hearings following the assassination attempt? Why was none of his activity mentioned by Congress, especially considering the FBI had access to his YouTube data and history? Why has the media widely accepted the narrative of a lone, unmotivated actor when Crooks' digital footprint shows years of escalating violent rhetoric? Is this a repeat of past intelligence failures, such as the Parkland school shooting, where the FBI ignored clear warnings posted on YouTube? Who, if anyone, was Crooks communicating with on encrypted platforms and alias accounts? Was he acting alone or reinforced by online radical peers? I, too, would very much like to know the answer to that question. Do federal agencies now possess this information? And if so, what action is being taken or is it being withheld? This, my friends, is what we need to know. And the trust us bro mentality that Kash Patel and Dan Bongino seem to have, not with this, but like with everything else that the American people said we wanted answers for. President Trump got into office and he was like, we need to know more on this. I want you guys to find out all the answers on my assassination attempt and release them. That hasn't happened. So tell me why. You guys are the actual FBI. You are the Federal Bureau of Intelligence. And you had, investigation. Getting that mixed up with CIA. The Federal Bureau of Investigation. And you have an entire investigation that was done by someone other than you. It stinks. Okay? It stinks. And we deserve answers, Kash. We deserve more answers than trust us, bro, or the FBI. If you like this clip and you want to see the full episode, click here. And if you want to subscribe to the channel, come on, you know you do. Click here.